Yo, what is going on, NFT Bros Podcast listeners? My name is Adam Andrews. As always, I am your host. And on today's episode, we have some special guests. Yes, guests, plural, joining us. Maddie Mintz and Mikey from MLC, Mid Life Crysis Podcast. These guys are running one of my favorite current podcasts in the NFT space right now. You guys definitely have to go check them out. I'm super excited to dive into this episode and chat with these guys today. So without further ado, Maddie, Mike, how's it going?
Yo, how's it going? Mike G here. Want to do a quick introduction. So I've done this 1,000 times. Born in DC, grew up in Maryland, went to Penn State. When I was in 4th grade, I actually met my boy Maddie Mintz, my co-founder, my best friend. We went to school together. We ended up going to Penn State together. Went to Penn State, got a graphic design advertising degree. Started as a mechanical engineer, though. Or was it a chemical engineer? I don't know. But it wasn't for me because you know why? Chemistry sucks. And I was not too good at that. So I always thought, like, hey, you know what? Video games are cool, and I could design video games, and graphic design popped in my head, so I rolled with that. Ended up working for Geico out of college, a big car insurance company in the States. Built their in-house creative department, managed their advertising team, ended up managing their multi-billion-dollar brand. Did all their TV commercials, radio ads, was in LA a lot doing radio production. And then about 6 years ago, I moved to Silicon Valley Bay Area, worked downtown San Francisco, worked for a solar startup, did the same type of work, built their in-house design brand team, managed their agencies, and then had some health issues, so I had to take a step back. I was senior level at that point with big budgets and teams, and I had a hard time managing myself, to be honest, brah. And so I got a job at Esurance, which was a little tech startup at the time, downtown San Francisco in the insurance industry. Since been bought by Allstate, a huge ass insurance company. So now I work there as high-level business strategy. And man, it's been 3 years ago now. Maddie and I reconnected during the pandemic, and we decided, let's fulfill our childhood dreams. We're going to start a podcast or something together, and our bright idea was streaming video games. And we quickly realized that was insanely saturated. So after 2 years and maybe 150 followers, we found NFTs and crypto. I actually found it through an old colleague from Geico, and I won an art competition. I won a first derivative of a cool cat. And when I got the cool cat, I saw it. I was like, this is the stupidest shit I've ever seen. It's a 5-year-old drawing of a blue cat. And then I went to OpenSea and saw it was $25,000. And that's when I made Mikey G NFT, went down the rabbit hole and did the whole NFT thing. So that's me in a nutshell, man. Maddie, how about you? Boom, baby.
$25,000 5-year-old photos. That's what we're here about.
Dude,
Maddie.
it blew my mind when I saw that thing and then saw how much money it was worth.
Remember the first time I had an NFT in my wallet that was worth like 30 grand, and it was just it was absurd to me. Absurd. Maddie, why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself?
So yeah, I mean, Mikey did a great background. I mean, we met at the 4th grade bus stop, been friends ever since. Did go to Penn State. I actually studied aerospace engineering there, and I always had a knack for math and building things, but I also had a flair for entrepreneurship. I was the kid that was selling candy or selling baseball cards or like finding a way to hustle, shoveling a driveway or mowing a lawn for some extra cash and building a business out of it. That's kind of where my background was. I figured if I go to school, I could study engineering and still start a business, but I couldn't study business and be an engineer. So engineering was the route for me. Um, got my degree, started building satellites. That was an interesting job for about 3 or 4 seconds, and then realized, oh, okay, this is like 40 years of being a really small cog in a wheel, and just the entrepreneurship bug just really took over. I have nothing bad to say about engineering. I think it's a wonderful occupation. There's just not a lot of room to expand or grow, and if you have any creative mindset whatsoever, the old days of when you watch, Apollo 13 and like solving problems and doing all this stuff, it just doesn't exist anymore. It's chug it into MathCAD, make sure it works, and then get somebody to sign off and say it won't break. And that's at the end of the day, if you can do that within a budget, you're an engineer. And I just didn't want to do that anymore. So I wanted to start a business of my own. I started really seeking out people who were successful in that field, found some amazing mentors, started my own business. I was in the firearms industry for about it's about 7 years. I started a training facility, shooting range, and retail facility, and built that up from absolutely nothing into a multi-million-dollar business. And then was looking to get out of that industry and do something new, really just because I had kind of capped out the potential there. And unless you franchise or do something, there was no way to keep going. And quite frankly, there was the liability and just the climate was changing to a point where I was like, I don't necessarily know if this is what I want to have my financial future linked to. It's not that the business wasn't profitable. It's just I didn't. It was difficult to predict long term, and so I just didn't want to be in that kind of climate. So I took a step back and said, let me step back. I got some equity in this. Let me get out of this and see what I want to do next. And that is when really the pandemic hit and just everything kind of shut down and really opened my eyes to, ooh, okay, I need to find something that's not going to be linked to necessarily retail or whether it's an essential business or not essential business and really start thinking about that. And that's where Mike and I really reconnected because, there was a lot of downtown. I don't know if downtown, I don't know if you all remember. It's like when everything was shut down, we were all just kind of sitting at home and we'd all enough what was it, Tiger King or whatever it was, everybody was sitting there watching Netflix all day. And I was reconnecting with Mike and he told me about that cool cat. And I was like, man, if you got a 5-year-old picture of a cat worth $25,000, then you have my attention. And we went down the rabbit hole together and it's been a really fun ride. But currently Mike's doing the insurance side of things. I'm actually I made a pivot to real estate. Real estate's a really cool occupation because you can have real estate as a job, you can have real estate as a small business, you can create a business system in real estate, and you can invest in real estate. And so it hits all four quadrants of income earning potential. And it allows you kind of grow as you want with it. And at the end of the day, if we're in this to make money, you want to be able to solidify that in something that can grow and they're not making any more land, so real estate's a good place to be. So that's what I do during the day, and then build Midlife Crisis by night, and that's where I'm at.
Hell yeah, hell yeah. You mentioned something that I totally forgot to tell you guys on the episode when I came on Mid Life, and you mentioned selling candy in school, and it sparked this memory that I had, and that I totally forgot to mention, which was I had candy machine businesses. Like I had a candy machine business. I had multiple candy machines throughout my hometown, and I would go fill them up and take all the fucking money out of them and shit like that. And that was like right after right after
awesome.
The lemonade stands, and I think it was the same time of lawn mowing when I got sick and tired of sweating it out during summer while my friends were at the amusement parks or at the park or whatever, and I was fucking mowing lawns. I was like, there's got to be a better way to earn money passively, and candy machines was what it was, dude. Got some candy machines for my 8th grade graduation for my parents instead of a pair of Beats headphones, Beats by Dre. I wanted those so bad, and my dad was like, well, here, look, you can either have these candy machines or you can have the headphones. The candy machines will probably make you like $50 a month, and so it'll take like 3 months for you to pay for your own headphones, and then you'll just make money every month. And I was like, oh yeah, fucking candy machines for sure.
How much was a candy machine?
Oh, dude, I think we got the first two were like $300 or $400.
That like legit vending machines, or
No,
what does a candy machine mean?
I'll send you a picture of what it was in Discord right now, and you'll kind of understand better
Yeah, because I'm thinking like that one stand machine that like, you put 1 quarter in and get
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
three
yeah, yeah,
M&Ms.
yeah.
That's what I'm
Those.
envisioning.
So they're called U-turns.
Oh, you
They're
Okay.
turn the
it's
knob.
yeah, U-turns. So and it also like swivels. I'll put this on the screen for the listeners and viewers on YouTube, so you guys know what I'm talking about. But that was kind of where I really started thinking like, oh, I can make money without actually putting in like massive amounts of labor, right? And so bringing it back to real estate, you mentioned it. It's a one of the best vehicles. It truly is, and it's a great place to store money, continuously grow money, and have that monthly return. Um, that's awesome. I didn't know you were in real estate, so very cool. I have some people to introduce you to. One specifically out in Florida. I don't know where you're at in Florida, but I have one guy that's from Atlanta. He invests in a ton of real estate out in Florida, so I'll make that intro for you. But dude, like I like to start the episodes after the introductions with a question. And Mikey, you already know it, so I'm going to surprise Matt with it, and I'm going to ask him first and then you next. So, Maddie, how do you explain NFTs to somebody who doesn't know what the fuck they are? Like, what is your 60-second elevator pitch to someone who has no idea what NFTs are?
Great question. My 60-second elevator pitch to NFTs is I asked the question, have you seen the movie Ready Player One? And I really hope that they have. Because if the answer is yes, my journey is going to be fairly easy. If the answer is no, I know we're in for a ride. But if it's yes, it's pretty easy, right? I can just basically say, hey, each one of those little items he purchased was an NFT and it was unique to him. That's why it was a big deal when they win it. And if they haven't seen it, then I have to try to explain digital ownership. And I think that the most popular one is like the baseball card analogy, or something like that, or a comic book analogy. And then I go through that, just make it a kind of a tangible analogy from there, and just say the same way you can own something like the Mona Lisa or a piece of art in your house, you can own it digitally. And what makes it yours is a digital contract that makes it unique to you. And that's where I go from. But if they've seen a movie or something that's like really easy to explain it, it sure makes the explanation a lot easier.
That is definitely a great explanation for sure. The baseball card one works quite often, but yeah, Ready Player One. If you understand that, you definitely like can grasp the concept of NFTs for sure. Mikey, what about you?
Yeah, I don't use any. I try to make it. It's not tangible, but I like to talk about the future, and I use this kind of story of really trying to convince people or explaining. I don't even have to convince them. I just say it very matter of fact. In our lifetime, most likely, not most likely, in our lifetime, there will be people that value digital assets more than they do real life assets. We're not far off from people looking at a one of one digital Ferrari in their metaverse that they want to pay a lot of money for, right? And so I say, with that being known, that these things are going to be hundreds of thousands of dollars, why would you not want to own one of these things that could be worth that much money for a fraction of the price? Because it's not if, it's when. And I really harp down on just the evolution of technology is changing. And then I also like to use the analogy, and we talk about this a lot on the show, is um, in an average lifetime, you might get two, three, if you're lucky, major shifts in technology or the way society operates and things, right? And in our case, we had the dot com, which was like the emergence of the internet. And Web3 is the next one, right? And unfortunately, now we're in the time of our money making years, your late 30s, early 40s. You've built businesses, you have that context behind you. And it's such a massive opportunity to take advantage of. And owning an NFT is an easy way to get into what the next version of the way we live is going to be.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. You see Porsche coming into the market doing an NFT, and just recently, actually, Kia and who else? Kia.
I think I saw Bentley or something.
Bentley did. It was Kia and Fiat who just came in and created metaverse um, dealerships for their car
Right.
dealerships, and so you can put on a VR headset and go and I haven't looked into it too deeply, but there's something to be said, and I I like to follow where the biggest companies in the world are putting little bits of
Yeah.
attention and testing new things, because those are the new emerging markets, right? When Microsoft and Apple and Kia, Bugatti, Bentley, like Adidas, Nike, Artifact, like these huge companies are starting to put a lot of attention and money. It may be small in terms of their overall revenue, but it's not an insignificant amount of money to be testing these new ideas and finding out these new things about this new emerging tech. To me, it doesn't make any sense to ignore it at
Right.
all. Like, I think you should at least be educated. I think you should, like you mentioned, at least be a part of it in the ownership aspect, right? You don't have to come in here and build a business. You don't have to come in here and work in Web3. But owning NFTs is a very, very easy way to make a shitload of money in the end. If you can come in, understand who's likely going to be the winners in the end, and looking at also new big companies coming in and doing interesting things and getting those first edition NFTs, because they're finite supplies and they're only going to do more, especially if it goes well, which it's going extremely well, like Web3, in my opinion. Yes, we're kind of in a
Yeah.
shit market, but I don't know.
But to your
You made a
point,
good point.
I mean, listen, you don't get rich by going where successful people are. You have to look at where are they going to, right? Where are they looking? And then you have to aim the same direction they are. And to this point, when Facebook was just a bunch of college kids, nobody cared. But those same exact companies you listed started getting Facebook accounts and building Facebook business profiles, right? And that added a lot of legitimacy to this whole social media thing. And now it would almost be silly to think of a company not having these type of things. Um, so I think a lot of that is to your point, is just like if this is where they're looking, that's the direction that the wealth is going to move. It's not what's happening now. And I also think back to your original question of like how to explain an NFT. I think there's a diminishing return. The older somebody is, some of these things, I mean, listen, I remember before my grandfather passed away, and this was a long time ago, but like he just refused email. You know what I mean? He was just, I'm not gonna do it. I'm still gonna write a check and mail my bills somewhere, right? And it didn't matter how I explained it. He just didn't see a benefit because he just spent most of his life not using electronic forms of communication, and he still wanted to go find a real encyclopedia to look something up and not use, a web search. And so there's going to be people who are just not going to play along with this, and that's fine, But for a younger generation, I think a lot of the ways that Mike and I described are going to work. I mean, at the end of the day, if you have somebody that's older and you just simply say, how do you know that your car is yours? And at the end of the day, it's like it's who holds the title, right? Well, so that's a piece of paper that decides ownership, right? Because if I just take your car, it's not mine, right? It's yours, and you can prove that because you have the title to it. Okay, an NFT is just a digital title. That's all, and the product is actually irrelevant, right? It's just a proof of ownership. And I think that helps an older generation get it, but it doesn't necessarily let them, to Mike's point, it doesn't necessarily let them see the benefit of that yet. And some of them may be like my grandfather and just never go with it. But I think, that's the direction people are looking because it just makes a ton more sense. Could you imagine trying to do a research paper now and not use the internet? It'd be wild. And so that's where it's going.
Mikey, I muted you. You got to unmute yourself. Sorry, buddy.
Got it.
You were typing, and so.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're good. You're good.
I forgot to mute myself.
No,
I usually mute myself.
you're good.
Sorry.
Go ahead. You
about
were going to
that.
say something.
I was actually looking at, I was typing because I was looking at how many active wallets are on OpenSea. I don't know the exact number right currently. I know it was hundreds of thousands last year.
317,000 unique wallet addresses that were active this past month. So February.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that number, right? We're talking about something that is going to revolutionize the entire world. And there's only 317,000 people that are actively like understanding what's going on. And I just wanted to bring that up because it makes me go back to the hardest thing about our little ecosystem of people that are really excited is this industry is totally based on hype, but the opposite, to be very fruitful in this space, is true. And it's really true with anything in life. It takes time, and there will be some of these NFTs that you think are complete shit right now that end up being massive companies. And who knows, it could be a Phantom Network who's launched one of the first kind of real Amazon-esque shopping malls with, that you can use ETH in their coin. But it could not be, right? And there's going to but you, being early to it, you have to play the delayed gratification game. But knowing that we're at the beginning of it is so powerful, and it's insane to think how small the ecosystem actually is, knowing that it really will fundamentally change the way people live.
Oh, absolutely. And like wrapping back to what Matt was saying and his point on, these companies all having Facebook pages very early. It's extremely true. You're seeing the same trend. It just so happens to be in NFTs, right? And metaverses and Web3 and crypto. And people are, I feel like they've just listened to the news narrative and that negative narrative around crypto for the longest time, and it keeps them away. And I truly believe that this massive amount of negative media attention around crypto and Web3 as a whole, and specifically NFTs as well, is all a play for the people who are building massive metaverses and massive things that are at the top, who own these news networks and these news conglomerates all throughout the world, for them to come in when they want and switch the narrative and then be like, oh yeah, hey, we have our own stuff here, and basically take a ton of market share from, the companies who have been here building for a long time. It's a little bit of a conspiracy theory of mine, but I totally think that it could be true. But to wrap back to Maddie's point, which is what got me to come to this, which is, you got to look where their attention is going. You made a great point, is look where they're moving, right? And move like them. I truly believe that if you want to be something, you have to be able to emulate that something that you want to be. If it's a successful podcast, you got to move like a successful podcast. You guys do a great job of doing that, right? You are trying to be like the Joe Rogan experience for NFTs and Web3 culture, and you guys do that phenomenally, like extremely well, right? And so you have to emulate who you want to be to become that person. And if you want to be, or if you want to move like these top huge companies, Nike, Apple, Facebook, all these massive corporations, you have to be early to these things, and you have to be testing. And you don't have to have money to get into NFTs, right? As a company, you really don't.
Yeah, I mean, I'll let Matt go down a conspiracy theory rabbit hole because he's very good at doing that. I'm not so much that guy, but I would actually alter it from conspiracy theory to actually more of a fundamental problem with the general overall society public that we talk about now, which is yeah, you could argue that, news outlets are just trying to get clicks, so they're shitting on crypto. I honestly think it's probably more of a product of crypto is confusing and people take 0 seconds to actually think and try to learn. Um, I think that's way more of a play as to why people shit on crypto, because it's that thing of, well, if I don't know it, or it seems foreign to me or too complex, I'm just going to shit all over it because so I don't look stupid, which in reality,
The email
they're going to
example
look stupid in the end.
yeah,
They just,
exactly.
Yeah.
and I think it's more of a product
Well,
of that than anything else. Maddie, what do you think?
I mean, here's the thing. Any change
Yeah.
comes with this. Any change, right? And here's what it comes down to is, Mike, you were in branding and marketing. Every business that's successful right now has the exact same problems the NFT space has, right? What they do is they pay companies that are full of people like Mikey G to make it sparkle, right? The thing is there's a lot of crap, and as long as we put sprinkles on it, it's fine. And that's marketing. That's how all business runs, right? We can go on about electric cars, but nobody wants to talk about where cobalt comes from, and where we're going to do with all these batteries when we're done with it. We can go on about, alternative energy sources with windmills, but nobody talks about the fact that the very product you need for a windmill to work is made from petroleum, also the windmills
Correct.
themselves, right? We can go on about Nike and how great their shoes are, but nobody wants to have the conversation about who's actually assembling those shoes. And the beautiful iPhone that you have that's $1,000 would be $10,000 if it was made by American labor, but it's not made by that. We all know where it's made from, and we all know the conditions that they're in. But as long as it's shiny and we get champagne colored, we're fine. And that's any marketing product anywhere. And it's like, I don't know. I agree, Mike. I don't necessarily think it's a conspiracy theory. I think it's just how commerce is done, right? I mean, making things work is
Yeah.
ugly. I mean, it's nice to go into your house and have a toilet that flushes, but where does it go? Somebody's got to deal with that, right? And that's an ugly job. So we just pretend to not think
Hmm.
about it, and it's just nice because it's somebody else's problem. And so I don't think that that's, again, some like massive revelation. I just think that's just how life works. And I think that a lot of people, to your point, Mikey, just would rather think about the part that's comfortable. Here's what's going to happen, though, and I think you have a point, Adam, is that, what will happen is these big companies will come into Web3 and they'll just rebrand it. Right? That's all they'll do. It'll be called something different. They just won't call it an NFT and they won't call it crypto, but it will be an NFT and it will be crypto and it will be Web3 blockchain technology. They'll just call it something different, and everybody will just like quietly acknowledge that and be okay with it suddenly. And that's just the way the world works. I mean, would you
Yeah.
guys agree?
100%. Yeah, I mean, look at Starbucks. I don't know for the last, I think honestly for like the last 10 episodes, I have probably quoted what Starbucks is doing with their NFT program. And it's not it's to us it's an NFT program, right? But to their users, it's I think it's called the Stamps program. Honestly, I should look it up. I'm pretty sure it's called the Starbucks Stamps program.
Is it
But
live?
it's
Because
a
I think I
rewards
signed
program.
up for
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, it's live.
Okay.
Yep. Um, yeah, and they're doing a great job of it. And uh, you made a great point, and I truly believe that is how we're going to onboard mass amounts of users. Is them not knowing that it's NFT technology or it's Web3 technology. It's got to be in the back end. Like I had this conversation on another podcast after watching a video of the guy who developed Gmail, the guy who created Gmail. He was like, I think one of the
Hmm.
first 20 employees at Google,
Hmm.
and they tasked him with creating Gmail. And it was an internal software that began with the 20 people that were at Google. And he came to a conclusion after trying to develop a product for himself that he gave to his other coworkers and users to get feedback. They didn't give a fuck how cool it was or how it aggregated his emails. They just cared about how it benefited them. They're like, well, I don't care that you can see your emails. Like, well, I need to be able to look at mine,
Right.
right? And so my point is nobody gives a fuck how Gmail works. They just want it to work, right? And
Yeah.
that's the same thing. That's gonna happen with NFTs. Like they're going to be an underlying technology for the most part, right? Yes, there will be these PFPs and art projects that are all, promoting that, hey, this is an NFTs, this is cool new tech, but the major companies that are coming in here who are going to do it right are going to just use it as underlying tech, not tell the users what it is unless they really want to know. Like, it'll probably just be in the frequently asked questions section of the website that they're using, and they'll just never know, right? Or when they come and they realize, oh shit, I can actually sell this for, $800. Oh, cool. All right, yeah. Show me how to set up a wallet, and there'll be wallet setup instructions, and they'll do it, and they'll sell their shit, and they'll be happy. They'll be like, oh, well, cool. NFT technology is cool, but it's got to be hidden. And I think
Mm-hmm.
I think the biggest players are going to do that and do that very well.
Yeah, I mean,
I think that's what makes it a
right.
big player.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, on top of that, and I was gonna say you already see it happening in the sense that, like, I think the people that are really in it right now, they think this, like, Discord project world is gonna last forever. But you look at bigger projects like Llamaverse or other projects that are creating tools that kind of optimize the life of an NFT connoisseur or trader. And one of the first things they're working on is how the hell to get out of Discord and how to not have to manage all the channels, because it's a horrible communications tool. I mean, Discord was built for gamers, not for launching NFT projects, right? So combing through your DMs is a miserable experience, and that's just like the beginning, and it relates to what you're saying of is we're even as a tiny little ecosystem trying to figure out how to make it better because it's cumbersome. And that whole notion of, like, all NFT projects and stuff happen in the Discord, that'll be gone sooner than later, and it'll get more to email or websites, or how do you do it on your mobile phone. So we're already seeing it happen right in front of our eyes.
I can't wait for that.
Yeah, it'll get rendered to like Linux, you know what I mean? Where it's like the real tech people are really into it, but 99.9% of everybody else doesn't even still know it exists. I think that's how Discord's, it's just gonna be there's gonna be the few of us that remember, and yeah. But listen, remember Mike? Remember we used to sit there and, like, we would put in addresses for dial-up modems and go to different boardrooms. You'd have to put in the different addresses to connect to a
Yeah,
boardroom
buddy.
chat. It was wildly ineffective, but we felt really cool at the time because we were doing it. But there's no way that would have been logistically possible for a company like Allstate to try to
Right.
do, right? And it wasn't until AOL came around and said, let's make this point and click, that like the internet really became available to the
Yeah.
masses, right? And to the point of Apple, that's what they did with cellular technology. They solved the biggest problems, make it easy and make it secure. Boom, done. And like that's really all people cared about. And so the question is, who's going to come in and essentially iPhone this process, and whoever is going to make a whole lot of money. And I think it's happening. I think there's companies that recognize that and they're working on it
Yeah,
now.
and Apple's the perfect example, is just laddering back up to the branding, marketing. That's ultimately what Apple did better than anybody else, is they just
Absolutely.
created this.
Absolutely.
I actually worked with Apple back in the day when I was working at Geico, and they were some of the most horrific people to work with because they thought they knew everything, and they were firmly convinced that they created design as a whole. Like, design did not exist before Apple, just because of the way they simplified everything and made their products so sleek. I literally, this vividly sticks in my mind. I'm on, like, a creative call, and we're trying to make some video app for that, some ad. I don't know. We were like one of the original launch partners when Apple first created what was called an iAd, right? So it was an in-app ad form in any iTunes store app that you would buy. And the creative directors on the other end, and we present everything that we've worked on with, by the way, high ass level agencies. Hundreds of thousands of dollars have already been spent at this point. And the response from the creative director was, it just doesn't have that Apple magic pixie dust. And I'm thinking to myself, what the fuck does that
Did
mean?
he actually
Apple
say magic pixie dust?
magic
Oh
pixie
my
dust.
fucking gosh, bro.
And I mean, we literally put the conference phone on mute and just looked at each other dumbfounded. Like I don't really know. And then there's horror stories with agencies like, and this isn't Apple per se, but like these people that just think they've created these insane ecosystems where when you're shooting a commercial, the agency has to sit in a different tent than the client. I mean, crazy ass shit goes to these egos. But wrapping back around, like that's just how convinced they were of the product they built, but it was more the brand and the creative that they thought was the top notch. It was never about the tech. It was about how does it look, and how they're the best designers out there.
Well, I mean, it's kind of true. I mean, like the people who win and the biggest companies market their products the best.
100%.
You know what I mean? Your products don't have to be the best for you to win. Absolutely not. You just have to be able to convince somebody else on the other side of this shiny fucking screen that your product's the best product for them and that it solves their problem or, you know, makes them feel good or whatever it is. And Apple has done a fucking phenomenal job at that. And, you know, perfect example of this. Perfect for NFTs specifically, to wrap this conversation back into NFTs, Azuki. The dude rugged like fucking 5 projects in a row, and they have almost 500,000 ETH traded. They have a fucking 15 ETH floor price right now, and the dude has not been prosecuted. And the community is so just brainwashed into believing that Azuki's a blue chip, and well, hey, it is because of their marketing, because of what they did to launch. And you know, I don't agree with it, but hey, it's lipstick on a pig. It's sprinkles on shit. You know, they marketed it better than the last 5 projects he rugged. You know, and yeah, I mean that's how I view it.
Sure, but there's also a buy-in level now, right? Because now it's uncomfortable to get out, right? There's a lot of people that you know, might have minted, and by far that was their biggest bag they've ever made. And so, you know, if Azuki goes away, there's a lot of people that stand to
Oh,
lose quite a
absolutely.
bit of money. And I think that that's definitely part of it, right? I mean, I think that there's a lot of people that have this like monetary pull to keep the hype there as long as possible, because we've all been there, right? We've seen projects kind of like you bought in at one point and it just slowly fades down, and we're riding it to zero, and like that sucks too. So who knows? But certainly for the upper echelon, the people controlling the project, yeah, for sure. I mean, it's just like it is wild how you can basically survive on just hot air alone.
Yeah, it's I'm actually interested to know now, like the holder activity on Azuki. I'm looking at it right now on owner activity, because that's intriguing to me, because at some point when all this came about and this news came out around Azuki and the founder having rugged a bunch of projects before and just calling them learning experiences. Hey, I get learning in business. I've failed a shitload more than I've succeeded in anything, as I'm sure you guys have as well. But completely rugging and just stealing millions of dollars is unacceptable. And it's mind-boggling to me that people are still, you know, supporting it. But hey, it comes down to that financial incentive that you mentioned, and it's crazy.
Yeah,
like one of my team members, he was holding onto Azuki at 20 ETH, and I think it was 20 ETH, and then that news came out and it went down to like fucking 8 in like a matter of hours. And he was like, oh my God, dude, I don't know what to do. Do I sell? Do I get like, this is the most expensive NFT I've ever had. And like, I thought this was going to Bored Ape stuff. And like, I never saw this coming. Should I go? And I was like, dude, I'm not one to tell you what to do with your money, but if that's the most amount of money you've ever held in your life, you should probably not just leave it up to some random fucking dude on the internet who's been rugging projects after project after project. You should probably just take your money and run, you know. And he did. And you know, it unfortunately rebounded and is back up to like 15, I think 15 ETH. But, you know, I don't know. I think
Yeah,
money
but he
money
still
comes into
made
it.
8 ETH,
Right.
man.
Yeah, he
I mean,
minted.
that's what
Yeah.
people don't talk about
Yeah.
is just like how much money. And
Yeah.
I'd also add to this conversation that, um, you know, yeah, what the founder did was a shitty thing, but he still did build a project with a pretty solid team. And I would honestly put up Bored Ape, Azuki, any of these top tier ones, except for, you know, more of a manufactured one like Goblin Town or Moonbirds. But the true blue chips that are starting to emerge, dude, it's all about their community. Azuki is not Azuki. If they're, I
100%.
mean, Azuki has multiple DAOs that are made by the community. The community has progressed, and you know the Twitter sphere is because of the community. It's not because of that dude. Um, you know, so it's unfortunate that he did what he did, but he gave a platform that, you know, people have, you know, held near and dear to their heart. And let's not, you know, back to the money thing too, when tens of thousands of dollars are at play. But they've done some creative stuff, and you know, Bored Ape, man, in the beginning, one, they didn't sell out, but you know that Discord was empty. They wouldn't say shit for months, bro. Months they would just and they randomly show up and be like, "Hey, we're doing this." So the only reason that thing survived for a long time was just because of the community and people were bumped up about it.
And
Uh,
to
Go ahead.
to touch on your point there of Bored Ape, you know, disappearing for months and then making announcements, it's extremely what's the word I'm looking for? Not reminiscent. I guess it would be reminiscent of what Apple does and how Apple operates, right? You look at the big players. How does Apple launch products? They shut the fuck up about what they're developing until September, and then they fucking release everything all at once.
Mm-hmm.
And Bored Ape does a great job of this. And
Mm-hmm.
they shut the fuck up until they have some shit that's cool as fuck, and then they release it, and it goes crazy. And unfortunately, I didn't have the, you know, I guess, forward enough thinking to pay attention to that when we got into the space. Sure, we did do that in the beginning, but we announced a few things a little too soon. And now I have a very, 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 very clear path on what we're going to do in the future and when we're going to announce things and how we're going to go about announcing them. And the floor price will reflect that in the future. And the community will reflect that in the future. And I think, you know, you did make a great point. The community is extremely strong with Azuki, you know, and I feel like during that point when the floor price absolutely tanked, the community really rallied together and was like, yo, are we really going to let this, like, this dude's piece of shit actions let our asset just absolutely tank in value? Hell no. Like, stop listing.
Yeah.
Like, this still has IP. This still has future, regardless of whatever he did. Like, he did this well now,
Yeah.
right? Yes, it took him 6 tries or 5 tries or whatever, however many rugs it took to get to that point. But hey, you know, they have some cool shit now. Like, you know, the art's fucking dope. I actually fuck with the art. It's really cool. I would fucking buy one, hang it on my wall, rock it as a PFP, but I'm not going to go spend that much money on somebody that did that and thinks that it's morally okay. But hey, that's just me.
I think each person has that line, and I think again, like there's if there's a business has made $1 million, there's probably something somewhere under a rug that somebody would disagree with. You know what I mean? I'm not saying like illegal or shady, but you know, certainly disagreeable, right? I mean, good grief, I came from the firearms business. I know all about people not liking, you know, an industry. However, you just have to work with a lot of those things. I mean, Azuki is bigger than one person at this point, you know, just like Tesla's bigger than Elon, right? I mean, you love him or hate him, don't let that affect whether you buy an electric car, or don't let that affect whether you believe in SpaceX, because if you believe in our space program, SpaceX has done more than NASA has in the last 30 years, and so, and that's coming from an aerospace engineer. And so it's like, good things can still happen. And the other thing is these projects are full of amazing people. Again, again, Tesla's got a rock star team of people. And just like Apple, despite Steve Jobs talking about it like this, but Apple's was more than just Steve Jobs, right? He was a great promoter and a statesman. It looks, come to find out, post fact, it sounds like he maybe not was a super nice leader to some of the employees, but nobody can just argue with his results, right? And at the end of the day, I think that sometimes great companies are still built by people that maybe I don't want to go have a barbecue with, right? But the fact that there's a team and an infrastructure now, we almost want to. I hope that Azuki succeeds, because it's way more than just that person.
100.
It's a whole community, as Mike said, and I'd like to
Yeah.
see them.
Yeah,
win.
it has a bigger.
I like
It
to see
has
us
a
all
way
win.
bigger impact on the NFT industry as a whole. We need the blue chips, right? Because if we don't, I mean, dude,
Yeah.
let's be honest. If Yuga explodes tomorrow, the NFT industry is fucked.
Absolutely.
They are NFTs at this point. They're multi-billion-dollar valuated company, and one of the main things that continues to drive this space forward. So whether they're shitty or not, and what's back to what Maddie said is, listen, I've thought about this a lot too. Like in the past, it's like, oh, I don't want to buy a product from a company that's done something shitty. Well, guess what? You're drinking fucking water and you're not buying anything, right? Like Matt said,
You
You
can't even drink water.
government-
Can't even drink water, right?
Can't even drink water.
Nike, Apple is literally poisoning multiple rivers around the world, killing people with their chemicals. Nike's had the child labor thing back in the day. That's still happening with multiple companies. What I'm getting at is, once you figure out, okay, that's impossible to try to stand by your principles on that way.
Yeah.
What is possible is how you conduct yourself and how you impact people and how you create your business. And that's the only thing
100%.
you can really do, because if you get lost in the shuffle on that whole mentality, you are doomed.
Oh, it's just a fucking never-ending spiral. Absolutely, I agree. And
Yeah.
I got this funny story. So my aunt, you mentioned how Steve Jobs was a bit of a dick, and my aunt actually worked in the same building down the hall from Steve for a long time, and
Wow.
she would work directly with him on like a weekly basis. She said, she goes, I'd see him every day and we would work on things directly together, right? And she told me one day he came into her office and he was talking about something and he started yelling and he was just being a fucking dick to her. And he did that and then he left. And then he came back like 2 days later, nice as ever, happy, and she told me she had this candy bowl on her desk, and it had candy. It was filled with candy. And he would always come in and grab a piece of candy while he was talking to her. And he came in and he went to grab the candy, and she told me she smacked his hand. And he was like, what the fuck? And she goes, that's for the other day. Don't ever speak to me like that again, or I will quit instantaneously. And she said he looked at me just absolutely fucking astonished. And then after about 10 seconds of pure silence, he apologized. And she was like, you can now have a piece of candy. I accept your apology. Thank you. And I was like, no way, my aunt's a fucking gangster. She just bitch slapped Steve Jobs' hand. No fucking way. It's crazy. I'll never forget that story. It's so cool. As a matter of fact, I'm going to clip this and send it to her because she's cool as fuck. I miss her. But yeah. Yeah. Back to your point is you can't nitpick too much because we all love Apple products for the most part. And, hey, he was a dick, but you can't do anything about that.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I mean, Mikey said it. It's like you got to pick what hill you're willing to die on here, and it's like every company's got something. I'm not saying that there aren't battles worth it. You know what I mean? If a company's just doing something just egregious, sure. Um, but at the end of the day, you just have to be able to roll with it. I mean, it's the age-old adage. You can't make an omelet without cracking some eggs or cracking some eggs. It's just like there's an ugly part of commerce that just exists. At the end of the day, people will do things if there's a dollar attached to it, and that's the way the world works, man. Good, love it or hate it, that's the way the world works.
Absolutely.
Uh,
Absolutely. I
so yeah,
100% agree. Well, gentlemen, this has been a phenomenal episode. Lots talked about, lots to eventually talk about in the future. I would hope that you guys come back on for an episode when we both have top podcasts in the NFT space, later this year. It's going to happen. Why don't you guys wrap up the episode by telling the listeners a little bit about what you do with Midlife, and then also individually something about yourself that we haven't talked about. We've talked a lot about business, NFTs, Web3, all that type of stuff. Tell the listeners some hobby, your favorite food, your favorite drink, just something random. I don't get to know you guys like that, and neither do the listeners, and I like to close out the episodes like that. So give them the little spiel of midlife and what you guys are doing in the space, and then drop a little bit of knowledge about who you are as a person.
I love it. That's a good ending. Maddie, you want to take midlife?
sure, yeah. I'll say this. So what we do at Midlife is, it's long form content. It's a podcast. It's a stream. Mike and I started playing video games together. We were just streaming video games, and for years did that with about, if we were lucky, we had a follower. Usually it was one of our own cell phones. And so we got really good at just having conversations and having a good time and being real. And then a couple people started popping in, a couple more people started popping in, and of course this is when Mike started getting into the whole NFT gig. And we started realizing there were more people hopping in on our streams to talk about NFTs than there were about the games. And so we made a decision to make a pivot. And what was fascinating to us was there were so many just amazing people, especially during that heyday when those voice chats on Hate Beast were going wild. There was just so many incredible people. You could meet a doctor, you could meet a policeman, you could meet a surgeon, you could meet a politician. I mean, it was a baseball player. It was wild, the people in these voice chats, and that fascinated us. And Mike and I really believe in sharing the lost art of just genuine human connection, people meeting people and making friends. And it's something that is going away as technology improves. And yes, there's a lot of really cool things that come with that, but one of the things that is a detriment is we lose that personal touch, and sometimes getting to know who someone is, not just what they do, because we do that. You meet somebody, what's your name? And then the next question we ask, what do you do? Right? We don't ask, who are you? The things about being a father or being a coach and with Little League, or going to a dance recital for your daughter, things like that get kind of left behind. But those are the things we actually treasure and remember. And so Mike and I like talking to people about those things. And it turns out, guess what? People like talking about those things, about themselves, and getting to share a story. And in a space full of potential, let's just say, there's a lot of trust issues in the Web3 space, right? Between potential scams and people lying. We just had a conversation about, project founders that rugged people. Getting to know the people behind projects rather than just the project seemed like a void that nobody was filling. And Mike and I felt we could fill that. So we started having long conversations with people, and we said this would be a really cool format to do a show around. And that's what we did. We built a show around the people in this space, getting to know them, and getting to a point where we can say, here's this person. We're not going to make a judgment call on whether their project is good, bad, or indifferent. We're just going to talk to them, and the people of the audience can decide whether this is somebody that they want to follow, or if this is somebody they want to get more information about, or a project they want to learn more about. And that's what we did. And so that's what the Midlife Crisis podcast is about, and our stream is about. We're on Tuesdays and Thursdays that we do that. That's at 9 p.m. Eastern time, and it's a good time. You should check us out.
Did you nailed it?
Mike, you got anything to add?
Yeah, no, I mean, the only thing I would add is it wasn't, when Maddie and I created Mid Life Crysis, it wasn't willy nilly like, hey, we're gonna just make a podcast and that's it. We have a 10-year plan. We built an actual company with a mission statement. We have values that ladder up to that mission statement, like think first, because people don't think a lot. Honesty beats happiness. These core principles we've learned over our life that we think are important to build a company behind. And yes, we have a podcast now, but we like Maddie said, we're getting into real estate and we're going to get into investing, and we have a long-term plan. And Midlife Crisis is just the beginning, which is our media entity of our company.
Boom. And it is a hell of a place to start. So if you guys are still listening, thank you so much for joining us today. Go check out what they're doing. I will put the link to my episode in there as well, so you can get to know me a little bit more. And I encourage you to follow along with them on their Twitter. I'll put the link to their Twitter in the podcast show notes and the YouTube description below as well. Why don't we wrap it up with one thing that we don't know about you? A hobby, a favorite food, something like that.
Mikey, you're up.
Could be anything.
I mean, if you've been on our show, you've probably heard me talk about the two things. I absolutely love golf. There are three really amazing things in life, which is making love, having fun, and then like number three for me is watching Tiger Woods smash a 300-yard drive. So I do love that. And then also I am a craft beer just connoisseur. I used to drink a lot, but I don't so much because of health-wise, but I still really enjoy a nice, fine IPA, stout, sour, anything that I can get my hands on. Unfortunately, I live in San Diego, which is the craft beer mecca of the world. I literally have, I think, 40 breweries in a 5-mile radius.
Brother. Tell me it's okay to book a ticket out to fucking San Diego and go to a bunch of craft breweries with you.
I got two extra bedrooms, brother.
Oh my God. We're going to make this happen. I love craft beer. I don't drink a ton. Honestly, maybe once a week. And like for a 25-year-old, that's probably not very typical, but craft beer, I love it as well. What about you, Maddie?
Well, I'm trying to think. So I told you I started a firearms business, but Mikey will tell you my roots go way back. When I was about 5 years old, I really just wanted to be a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle when I grew up, man. And Bruce Lee was like my idol, and I loved all things martial arts. There was just something cool about it, you know. And I think the idea of like you could train yourself to a point where you could not only take care of yourself but take care of others that can't take care of themselves was always like a big thing in me. So started martial arts at a very young age. I've always loved it. I enjoy training. For me, it's not about fighting, it's just about the training itself. I love the skill set behind it, and that evolved as I got older into various other forms of martial arts and eventually into firearms. But I'm not like I'm not a hunter. I'm not into all I shoot is paper, man. I like the skill of precision. I think that's fascinating, and once I realized it was a skill, that was exciting to me. But I think that there's something else just behind the general overall concept of like freedom starts with the ability to be autonomous yourself despite what other people might impose upon you. And so it's interesting how that from a childhood that builds confidence and discipline and things like that, but as an adult really lets you, it just changes your mindset on how you look at things, and when it comes to overall preparedness, Mike and I joke because I'm a big planner, but I like to have things organized and in a row just because I like to be ready. And so I think it's interesting how that evolved into that. But yeah, I'm really big all things self-defense and like kind of personal freedoms. I'm a big fan of that.
Adam, I got one thing for you, bro. I'm 1,000% believe this when it does happen. When the Terminators take over or a zombie apocalypse happens, you better find out where the hell Matt lives because he will be ready.
Bro, I'm going straight to my father's house. Dog, we're so like, remember when we had our episode and you mentioned you loved guns and we were live on stream and I went to grab and I was like, oh wait, I probably shouldn't show this live on stream. I'm gonna show you right after I hit the end record button what I was gonna show you because I forgot to send you a picture because I love guns too. That's super dope. Boys, I gotta have you guys back on for a future episode. We have so much more to dive into, and I am going to start kind of shifting the podcast in a somewhat different direction. We're going to keep the NFT show going, but I think I want to bring on a different type of show, and I want to run it by you guys, and I want to have you guys back on for the first episode of it. So with that being said, thank you everybody for tuning in to NFT Bros Podcast episode. I don't even know. I think we're in like the mid-20s now, which is dope. So I'm super excited. Thank you guys for tuning in. If you liked today's episode, go drop Maddie and Mikey a follow and check out what they're doing at Mid Life Crysis. Otherwise, I will see you on the next episode. Peace.